Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 156 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be Charlie Vinch, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, let's start with our quote. And that is, "To me, the extraordinary aspect of martial arts lies in its simplicity. The easy way is always the right way. And martial arts is nothing at all special. The closer to the true way of martial arts, the less wastage of expression there is." Great quote from Bruce Lee. All right, Charlie Vinch is a jiu-jitsu black belt and owner of Budo Martial Arts Studio in Ewing, New Jersey. In this episode, he discusses a lot of things, including his recent Brazil trip, training at the world-renowned Chute Boxe Academy and meeting Wanderlei Silva and others, his extensive martial arts journey, getting his black belt from the Migliarese brothers, and what he's learned from them, his academy and philosophy, his goals for 2023, and some lessons he's learned in 22. His thoughts on realistic training and what's needed for someone to get great in striking, no-gi, gi, and street self-defense, and other very interesting subjects. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. After the interview, make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Charlie. All right, I'm speaking with Charlie Vinch, BJJ black belt and owner of Budo Martial Arts Studio in Ewing, New Jersey. So welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Marty. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We've been trying to get this going for a while, so glad we finally were able to align our schedules. So appreciate that. And I've got a number of things I want to talk to you about, but I know you just got back recently from an extended journey to Brazil. So let's start off by just hearing a little bit about that.
Sure. So my wife is from Brazil, and we travel there just about every year. I've been going there every year since, I guess, about 6 years ago or so, maybe even longer, maybe 7 years ago. So I've been there quite a few times. And each time I've been there, it's been an amazing experience. I want to talk to your listeners about what I've been doing the past couple times. So the first few times that I went, I was training with a guy in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu named Sergio Moraes. Do you know who he is?
No, I don't.
So he's an Alliance black belt. He's a 6-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's like one of the OGs of the Alliance Jiu-Jitsu lineage. And when I went to Brazil for the first time, this was the closest guy to my wife's parents' house. So I was like, man, let me train with this guy. And it's been an incredible experience training with him and learning from him and seeing his style and then training with his students and, getting the Brazilian sort of jiu-jitsu culture really in Brazil, while I was there. And recently he moved to Bahrain, which is like in the Middle East. And now I train more striking when I go to my wife's city, which is called Curitiba. And Curitiba is the home of Chute Boxe. Chute Boxe was originated like with the names of like Mauricio Shogun, Ninja Shogun, Andre Adida, Wanderlei Silva, Anderson Silva, the guy that owns King's MMA out in California. I forget his name, but all of those original Chute Boxe guys in Pride all come from my wife's city, which is called Curitiba. Wow. So there's more striking there than there is super high level jiu-jitsu since Sergio left.
Interesting.
Yeah. So everybody was like messaging me while I was in Brazil, and they're like, I want to go to Brazil and train jiu-jitsu. And they're like, all I see are striking videos. How come you're not training jiu-jitsu? I'm like, I am training. Right. I am training jiu-jitsu, just not at the level that you think that I'm going to say that. Let's say it's not, I didn't put it in the forefront of what I wanted to be doing priority-wise. So while I was in Brazil, I have a striking background, and we can talk about that later. So while I was in Brazil and Curitiba, I wanted to make sure that I was getting the most out of what I could get while I was there. So why not get the striking from the Chute Boxe guys while I'm there instead of looking for jiu-jitsu? Like, this is what they're known for. This is what I want to do then.
It makes perfect sense, man. What a great opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's so cool that you're training or had a chance to spend time and train with the Chute Boxe camp, man. That's excellent.
Yeah,
a lot of rich history and lineage there, man, for sure.
Oh yeah. I got to meet all of the, a bunch of these guys. I got to meet Wanderlei Silva. I got to meet Andre Adida. I got to meet some other like really high level guys that fought in Pride back in the day. And it's really great to connect with them because, again, I'm from America. I don't know about you, Marty, but growing up watching Pride, like when you saw Wanderlei Silva fight in Pride or fight in the UFC, and then you get to meet him in person, it's like you're meeting somebody who's like a superstar, in the MMA. Yeah. So it was really, really, really nostalgic, if you will, like to meet somebody like that.
Yeah, man, I used to love Pride, and he was definitely one of the big forces in that. Seems just like a wild dude, man. I'd love to. What is he like in person?
He's a pretty. I guess I don't want to say wild. I guess the expression I'm looking for is he's very animated. But a lot of people in Brazil, where I was at in Curitiba, are animated in a positive way. Like they're very, very friendly. They're super outgoing. They're all about like connections with relationships with people and high fives and cheering each other on and training hard and just a really positive environment. So when I got to meet him, it was like he was so. When I met him, he was like giving me hugs. He was like slapping my hand, and I was with Sergio Moraes because he's friends with Sergio. And I was like, man, so nice to meet you. He was like, brother, so nice to meet you. He was like, how old are you? How much do you weigh? And I'm like, why is he asking me how old I am, how much I weigh? And then I told him, and he was like, oh, we have a fight we have a fight coming up here in Curitiba. Do you want to fight in the promotion? I was like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm past that.
Wow.
So super inviting.
Ready to throw you right in.
He was ready to throw me right in.
That's great, man. Now, wasn't Marco Huas part of that camp too?
Yes.
Yeah, going way back. All right, so let me ask you this: what do you have any tips for Americans that I've always wanted to go to Brazil, but I haven't made it yet. But I'm definitely going to do it at some point. Been fortunate to travel a lot of places, but haven't made it there yet. But do you have any tips or advice for Americans that are going to be traveling down there? I know it can be very dangerous and that kind of thing, but just what would you recommend?
That's a really great question, Marty. I'm so glad you asked that because I've been talking to BJJ fanatics about possibly doing something on YouTube where I can give Americans a whole tour guide on what they should be looking for, what they have to do beforehand, and the things that they need to kind of know before they travel into Brazil. So
Right.
if you would be interested in that, or you think your listeners would be, I'll put that together, because I believe personally I've been there enough times that I can put something together like that. But I would say right off the top of my head, the first things that come to mind are the things that you need in order to travel to Brazil. Is you want to make sure that your your passport is in like good standing within the dates of when it's valid. I had a friend who didn't. Well, this is before you had to have a visa. Now you don't have to have a visa. Now you just need your passport. But I had a friend. His passport was going to expire. He went to the airport, had everything set, ready to go, and then they wouldn't let him on the plane because I think his passport expired the day after, his travel. So it would have been in expiration on the way back. And he didn't think about that. But these are all things to think about, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to have to go to the embassy. So passport is relevant. Number 2, from my experience traveling in Curitiba, which is super south. So when everybody hears Brazil, they're like, oh, Rio or São Paulo or, Fortaleza. They're thinking about all these places up in the Northeast. My wife is from the south, which is about an hour plane ride, maybe a little bit more from Argentina. So it's very south. It's very far from Rio. If you're going to be traveling into the areas where it's less tourist, which is in Curitiba, where my wife's city is, or anywhere down south, you need to have some sort of Portuguese. Okay? If you're in Rio or you're in other places where it's high tourist areas, most people, again, not all, but most people will speak English. I came into points in my travels in Brazil, in Curitiba, where I'm talking, there was no English whatsoever. I mean, people thought I was speaking German because they'd never even heard English before in real time. So you need to have a little bit of Portuguese, or a good amount, in order to be in areas that are not heavily trafficked by tourists. Because, I mean, you could just be lost. You could get yourself in the wrong situation. You could end up just hungry all the time. I mean, there's a lot of things. So you need some Portuguese.
So, eu entendo um pouco de português.
Eu falo um pouco de português. So
just a little.
Just a little. But I've even asked people before, if I was somewhere like getting food at the mall, or I was at like a gas station or something, if I really got stuck, I would, they're like, okay, like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And I'd be like, você fala inglês? And they would say, no, nada, eu falo nada. Like, I don't speak any. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really bad right now, because I don't have any gas in my car. And I need to make it to the place that I'm going to go train at. And I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I'll whip out my phone sometimes and put in Google Translator exactly what I need. And then I'll just show the guy, what it is that
right on.
I'm looking for. All right. So that's number 2. I would say number 3 would be like, these are like for sure things that you would need when traveling to Brazil, or tips would be, if you're in an area that you do not know to be a safe area, or you don't think it is per se, do not wear flashy stuff like watches, or even really expensive sneakers, or any kind of attire that would draw attention to you, that could possibly say, hey, this person has some money. Or, maybe this person is, a target that I'd like to, take their things. And then as soon as they find out that you don't speak Portuguese, you've already drawn attention to yourself. Now, something could happen. Has this ever happened to me before? Only one time, when I was in Rio. I was approached by a man by the beach, and he was kind of aggressively approaching me. But I was with my wife, and we were able to kind of diffuse the situation. But those are like the tried and true things of, I would say, that you need in order to travel to Brazil. Now, there's other like really detailed things that you need to know about, like your travel and your booking and Uber and all of those, that I'd love to put in that series for whoever would like to know about it, and have a travel guide for people to go to south of Brazil, because the south of Brazil is completely different than north of Brazil too.
Right. I think that'd be a great thing, man. I think there's so many people in general, but especially in the jiu-jitsu world, that want to go down to Brazil at some point. It's on their bucket list. And, man, anything you can do to make that more safer and more enjoyable is a big win. So I think that'd be very well received and well needed. So
awesome.
Definitely do it.
Maybe we'll do how about this? How about we do a travel group to Curitiba, Brazil, and we do like a Chute Boxe camp where everybody can train with these amazing people in Brazil, in south of Brazil, and they get to learn some striking and MMA stuff from these top guys. Because again, Marty, travelers don't go to this city. Like American people don't go to Curitiba. They don't go to Chute Boxe. They don't go to Paraná. They don't go to Santa Catarina, which is the state below. Like, again, like I've ran into people and I've been in situations they've never met an American. They've never heard English. They've never seen an American dollar in their life. It's like it's the furthest thing than they've ever seen before. But if you go to Rio, it's like everyday thing. So maybe a travel group down to Curitiba, and I can organize it for everybody.
Sounds cool. Sounds intriguing, brother. Wonderful. All right, let's shift gears and talk about your martial arts journey. Like, how did it all get started for you, and what has the journey been like for you, brother?
I got started in martial arts when I was about 12 to 13 years old, and I started off with a mixture of martial arts. I went to the Princeton Academy of Martial Arts right here in New Jersey, and the head instructor, Guru Rick Tucci, or Master Rick Tucci, I think he's Guru now, or I think he likes to be referred to as that, was a person who practiced many martial arts. So he was a blue belt under Higa Machado, and we're going back, I'm 40 years old, so we're going back, close to 30 years, 25 years. He was a blue belt under Higa Machado. He had a certificate under Eric Paulson, Chute Boxe. I'm sorry, not Chute Boxe, catch wrestling. And he was certified under Dan Inosanto, which is a JKD background. And then he also did Muay Thai with Arjun Chai, and then he had some Silat background. So going into this academy, as a young kid, I was able to choose all of those martial arts. And I want to say I was really, really, really blessed with being able to see all of the martial arts when I first started, as opposed to just seeing one or the other. It really opened up my eyes fast.
That is cool.
It is cool, right?
Yes. I mean, so much better than just kind of going in and you're doing your one art and you think, no, this is martial arts. And that works fine for a lot of people. But to go in and have like this smorgasbord, right, of awesome martial arts from some high level instructor, man, amazing.
Mm-hmm. I always say I couldn't have picked a better place to go to for my first experience, because as you know, and your listeners know, when you're young, you're moldable. So as a 13-year-old, as a 10-year-old, however, when you're young and you go into a martial arts place, your martial arts instructor is able to mold you to their concepts and their framework and how they see martial arts. And that's how you're going to see it. So one of the big things that he emphasized always was, and I'm truly grateful for this, like truly grateful, is be like water. Use no way as the way. So he always talked about, if this doesn't work, then you do this. And if it goes to the ground, then you do your groundwork. If you're standing up, then you use your stand-up work. If you get clinched, you can elbow, you can headbutt, you can trip. Once you're on the ground, now you can use your jiu-jitsu. You can do your joint locks. You can do punches. You can do, he was about MMA then, 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it really helped me, because when I transitioned out of his place and I went to traditional jiu-jitsu and I went to the boxing gym and I went to, traditional kickboxing, I was already ahead of the game because I already had some of that stuff in my belt. And then when I got into mixed martial arts, I wasn't a one-trick pony. I wasn't okay, you're a wrestler, you can only do takedowns and, maybe sub somebody. Or I'm only a striker, and as soon as I hit the ground, I'm nobody. Like, I had a good mixture of everything already at a really young age. And that's what I think we're seeing now in martial arts. The younger generations are starting mixtures earlier, Whereas
Right.
25 years ago, I had started that mixture earlier.
That's cool. And I think I've heard that from a lot of people that were involved in JKD way back in the day. It seemed to have, focus on all ranges, a more complete kind of picture of different fighting applications and that kind of thing. So I think that's great for anyone, including you, that had that, as well as the other stuff you had, for sure. But it gives you such a great foundation and broad outlook to go into other ones you did later.
Mm-hmm.
So where'd it go from there?
So from there, it went from training when I was really young in all these different martial arts to, all right, I want to do some boxing. So I went to a boxing gym in Trenton, New Jersey here called Goss and Goss. Sammy Goss and Barry Goss were Olympians. They were boxing Olympians. They medaled in the Olympics. So they were great boxers here in the inner city. I did a couple, fights in boxing, trained there, and then something had me go, all right, I need more. So then from boxing, I switched it up to MMA, and then from MMA, I transitioned into more traditional jiu-jitsu. And then after traditional jiu-jitsu, I kind of transitioned back to more striking. And then after more striking, I transitioned back to more MMA. And I feel like I've had this fluidity of ping-ponging on, where I wanted to improve most. And I kind of put my time and energy there, and I would shift it, back and forth on where I really thought that I wanted to improve in for whatever reason. So it's been a shift even till now where I wanted to improve on something for a certain reason. Does that make sense?
It does. And what I like about that is it always keeps you enthused, because instead of kind of possibly getting in a rut of doing the same thing long term, wherever your passion is leading at that time, or where you feel like you need some more work at that time, wherever you're drawn to, you go there and you focus on that for a while, and then you come back around, do the other. So I like that, actually. It's very intuitive.
Mm-hmm. As a true martial artist, right, Marty? It's self-discovery. It's like, where do we see ourselves and where do we want to explore and get really good at? Where is the challenge at? Where is hey, I really want to improve here. And Rafael Lovato always talks about this, like, the samurai trains in the gi, the samurai trains in no gi, the samurai trains in kickboxing, the samurai trains in judo and wrestling. And I love that. I love to improve on each part of those aspects, because I really view myself as a martial artist. I don't view myself as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I don't view myself as a boxer. I don't view myself as a kickboxer or whatever you want to call it. I view myself as a martial artist, and I want to learn the arts of what a martial artist knows. And the best practitioners in those martial arts, I want to know what they do. I want to absorb it. Beautiful.
Love and respect that, for sure. I consider myself a martial artist as well. Unfortunately, because of just bandwidth, I find myself having to focus, and it is jiu-jitsu for the moment, for sure, on one, because if I was independently wealthy, I would probably just go around traveling, studying languages, and all kinds of martial arts constantly, right? But I've been fortunate to study various ones along the years, but right now I feel like I have to kind of pick one and choose. But it's not like you're doing a bunch at one time. It sounds like it's like you'll do one or at least focus more on one for a while and then go to the other and the other, wherever it leads you at that time.
Mm-hmm. When I was early on, again, when I was 13, I had the option of being a 13-year-old with no responsibilities, of going into the academy there at Prince Martial Arts and being able to hit 2 and 3 different martial arts in one day. And then the next day I could do the same thing. So I could go from like Muay Thai to shoot wrestling. And then the next day I could go to Jeet Kune Do into, the jiu-jitsu class. So like I was able to hit those classes back to back. And as you know, when you're young, you can absorb this stuff really fast.
Oh, yeah.
So I was able to absorb it really quick, and I caught on, and I was just thirsty for more, man. I was just like, I couldn't get enough of this stuff. I knew when I walked in there, I was like, this is for me. Like, this is home. Like
Wow.
this is it.
This is home. I love it. And not only can you absorb it at such a high, level and intensity of when you're young, but um, with ease, but also your body, you can recover from doing several sessions a day, that kind of thing. So it's the best of both worlds there.
Absolutely.
So how did that evolve to, I'm sure we could spend hours, on your journey, but what, I know you got your black belt from the Migliarese brothers, Phil and Ricardo. Tell us a little bit about training with them and what it was like to get your black belt from them.
This is a great topic. I've talked about this on every podcast I've been on. Training with Ricardo and Rick was really eye-opening in the sense that my past experience with martial arts was very similar to Rick and Phil's experience with their martial arts. So we were able to hit it off right away. Now, past places I've been to for strictly jiu-jitsu or, MMA or whatever it was, were great places. But until I went to them, they were able to, or they have already pieced it together. Whereas past places I've went to were just really good at, gi jiu-jitsu, or really good at just grappling with no punches. Or I went to a stand-up place and it was just a good stand-up. When I first went to them, I saw that they easily could put, everything. They were already putting everything together like I was, even better, right? So the first day I went to Rick and Phil's place, I got smoked, but I got smoked in a way because I had been rolling for a while, like nicely smoked. And I was like, all right, I got to know what these guys know, because I just got told, and this person wasn't using strength or athleticism. Like it wasn't, it was something deeper. Marty, do you get what I'm saying? Like, if you're young and you go against somebody who's young too, and they're really athletic and you're really athletic and they beat you, you're just like, all right, they were a little bit faster and more athletic. But if a guy who's like 150 pounds, who looks like, a skinny dork or nerd, I don't want to say he's a dork, he's a great guy, he's really good at jiu-jitsu, he beats you kindly and he doesn't have to use strength or athleticism because he doesn't have any, well, then he's really doing something right and his technique is really good. So I want to know what that dude's doing.
Absolutely. It's not based on attributes. It's based on skill, knowledge, and technique.
And I love that. And that's something that, again, Rick was really big on, was teaching us when we were younger. Like, I would go as hard as I could on certain drills, and he was like, stop. Everybody stop right now. You're trying to hit too hard, or you're trying to kick too hard, or you're trying to punch too hard. I know that everybody here can add power later, but you cannot fix your you cannot punch really hard and kick really hard and then fix your technique later. It needs to be the reverse. Your technique needs to be flawless and immaculate, and then later you can add the power and the strength. And that's always stuck with me, because you can't refix it, right? So like, if you train for 5 or 6 years and everything's on power, strength, and attributes and very minimal technique, it's hard to add the technique back. But if you train on technique and attributes and all of the nuances of the position and how it works and all that stuff, and then you add power and strength, you are way ahead of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a really great advice, because like you said, it's hard to go back and fix bad patterns and things that don't serve you and actually work against you. So you couldn't have gotten better advice at that time, for sure.
And I still use that today with my students. So this guy who was rolling with that balance for the first time, obviously his technique was good, and that's what really drew me to the whole experience, was the technique and the attributes here are incredible, because this person who displayed it was not a physical specimen, and I at the time was a more of a physical specimen, because I was a young kid who was very athletic, who was fighting MMA. I want to know what this guy has, because if I can attain that thing that this person has, and they show me how to do that, plus my physical attributes, I'm going to be really good.
Absolutely. Would you say that's the most important lesson you learned from them, or does anything else stick out from your time with them?
Oh, that was one of their students that did the beating to me.
I got you.
But
All right. Yeah.
I would say what like caught me off guard was how good of a striker Ricky is. So I had a ton of boxing experience, ton of kickboxing experience, ton of MMA experience, and I can do really good in an MMA room. Like I can hold my own like just about against anybody. And the first time I saw with Ricky, he really surprised me how good he was. He was really giving it to me. And I was like, this guy's like a 3rd-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he boxes like a professional. Like, I've seen him decimate really high-level guys in the MMA room. And not on purpose, just, he starts to get heated, and people start to swing hard, and I swear, he could hang with anybody. Like, this dude could hang with anybody. So when I saw that, it surprised me, and I'm like, all right, this guy's not only a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, he's really good at MMA, and he's really good at striking. This is the place for me. And then, Marty, what really kind of anchored me, like those were the things initially I was drawn to about the place and the things that I thought that I could accumulate from the place. Those are the things that I thought that I could learn from them. The thing that anchored me and made me stay with them until this day and really be a part of their family is the way that they treat people. The way that Rick and Phil treat people is like almost like nothing I've experienced before from anybody in the martial arts world. Just really giving first, and they give the shirt off their back to you, really helping, just really good people. They're just solid people. And when you're in a martial arts community or family, that's not your first thing that you're thinking about when you join, but that's the thing that will make you stay. And that's the reason I say to this day, I don't need Rick and Phil to complete my martial arts journey right now. I don't need them. I'm a black belt. I could branch off from them and never see them again, and I'm still a black belt. And I could continue my journey and everything in my life. But the reason I stay with them is because I want to stay with them. They're great people. I love being around them. I love the culture. I love hanging out with them. I love the life lessons. I love that, the things that they do in their life, they're inspirational. They've been mentors to me. So it's so much more than just the martial arts. And that is why I continue to stay with them to this day.
Wow. That says a lot right there. I mean, that says a lot. Like you said, you're on your own journey. You've reached a certain point, but the lessons and the culture and the vibe that they have that you get from there is everything, and that's why you stay.
Mm-hmm.
How did this lead
next to none?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like next to none, man. Anybody who goes to Balance will tell you it is one of the best places to. It's one of the best places to go train physically, culture, and mentally. Like it's so invigorating with positive energy. Like when you leave there, you feel like $1 million.
That's awesome.
Because you had a great session, or you had a talk with somebody, or Ricky or Phil's energy, their positive energy got into. It's transfer of emotion. And Marty, I think you're big on Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's transfer of emotion. I mean, that's it. It's transfer of emotion. If somebody is like, I went off on a rant on this before a while ago, and I feel like a good time is to bring it back now for your listeners, is your instructor on where you learn needs to be more than just moves. You will never fully be the best that you can be unless there's a transfer of emotion that sparks you to want to be there, to want to learn, to feel invigorated by the class. I don't care what the instructor knows. I don't care what moves they're showing you. If you don't feel good about yourself and about that experience and where you're going, and you don't feel like you're full of positive energy as you're doing something, you'll eventually peter off.
Absolutely correct. I mean, you can only, quote, stay motivated for so long with just kind of learning moves or whatever. But if you're not emotionally invested and you don't feel like you're really growing and having that not only fed to you, but, you feel like you're growing as a person and creating that passion about it, you won't sustain. And that environment is so important. And that's why it becomes so much more than just just the moves and just the mat. The lifestyle and what you gain from it along the way is so much bigger than learning to fight, which is extremely important too.
Yeah, transfer of emotion.
Absolutely. So how did that lead to your opening your own academy?
So I saw like what Rick and Phil were doing for other people. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to have my own academy. I want to be able to impact other lives. I want to, have my own place where I can train and do those kind of things. Let's go a little bit before that. Like that was my initial thought. After my career was to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And in the journey of becoming a professional mixed martial arts fighter, I incurred what's called a torn hip labrum. And it's a genetic deformity in my hip. It's called FAI, femoral acetopic impingement. So while I was living in Philadelphia, training with Rick and Phil, pursuing my career to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter, working at GNC, I tore my labrum in my hip. And from there, it was downhill. From there, it was downhill for the next 4 years. I got a surgery so owning a studio during that time wasn't even a thought in my mind. I'll tell you later how that became a thought. So during that time that I was going through these hip labrum tears, I was going to doctors and physical therapists, and I finally had to get a surgery. And the surgery didn't work. So I got hip debridement / repair on both of my hips at 20-something years old, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So now I'm like, what am I going to do with my life now? Like, my hips are messed up. I can barely train. I can't become a mixed martial arts fighter because I can't even, do physical activity. What am I going to do now? So my friend Eric Purcell, who owns NPR Endurance, which is pretty close to Philadelphia also, was like, hey, why don't you help me with the striking program here? And they have a big striking background. Why don't you come help me with the striking program? I need some help. I was like, all right, whatever. I'll come help. And Rick and Phil also asked me at the time, they're like, hey, can you help with the striking program too here in Philly? And I was like, all right, cool. So I was working as a striking instructor. So as I'm working as a striking instructor and I'm seeing the impact that I'm having on other people and how much joy and satisfaction and growth that I'm able to give to somebody else is lighting my fire bigger than when I was being a mixed martial arts fighter for myself. And that's where it started to become, maybe I'm not going to be a mixed martial arts fighter. Maybe I'm going to be a great coach. Maybe I'm going to have my own martial arts place one day. Maybe this is what I want to do. And that's when it started turning the wheels of like, this is the direction I need to be going because this is fulfilling me more than a mixed martial arts fighter. As a mixed martial arts fighter, you have to be a selfish person.
Right.
If when you're a fighter, you have to be selfish. And when I was hurt and I didn't have anything, attributes to be physical, it was like I lost my selfishness. It was like, I can't be selfish. I can't train. I can't run. I can't do jiu-jitsu. I can't punch and kick really hard. I can't have those grueling workouts where it gives me the high after and think about the next fight I'm going to do and who I'm going to fight and how they can't. I don't have that. I can't be that. I can't be selfish. So now I'm learning to be unselfish and give back, and it's lighting my fire even more.
That's awesome.
It's fulfilling me
right?
even more.
Yeah.
What a shift. Talk about a silver lining.
Yeah. That's amazing because like you said, you do have to be selfish, whether you're a fighter at a high level or a champion bodybuilder, whatever it may be, you have to be so laser focused on those results and every minute of your day is, consumed with what you have to do to get there and not judging it. People have to do that to get there. But when you couldn't do that and you had to get a different perspective, it really opened your eyes and opened the doors of possibility to, I might not be able to do this, but I can impact lives for the good in a whole different way.
Yes, like Tony says, not why is this happening, to me, but what is this experience teaching me?
Exactly. Or instead of life is happening to me, life is happening for me. I like that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love talking to anybody that's into Tony. I've been following him for years, and I actually went through, got certified in his coaching program and things like that. So big fan, man.
Oh, that's great. Did you do UPW or any of the other events?
Yeah, I've done UPW a couple times, and I haven't made it into the other longer ones yet, but maybe someday. But I used to teach use a lot of his material. I used to be a stress management counselor for cardiac rehab at Duke University Medical Center and life coach for their employee wellness. And I used to just draw straight from his stuff for sure.
I love him. He truly life-changing for me, Marty. UPW was life-changing. Yeah. Business Mastery was life-changing for me. A lot of people in the Tony Robbins group, martial arts related, actually we can talk about that if you want to, have still been impactful to me to this day, just meeting martial artists who are very successful through Tony Robbins events who I still talk to today.
That's very cool. It's very cool.
It's really an amazing journey.
It sure is. So eventually you did open your own academy. So tell me what that was like and what that is like ongoing.
What that was like when I first opened, I was on my second bilateral hip surgery. Right now, I currently have what's called resurfacing. I don't know if you know this, but I have 2 fake metal hips.
No, did not know.
And yes, I do. I have 2 fake metal hips resurfacing done on both of my hips because the first surgery failed. So a year and a half later, I was able to get another one. And then I had to wait another year and a half or so before I could really train well. So I was literally not training for almost 4 years straight. And it was hell. I'll be very, very frank and honest. It was hell because when you have something that helped you change your life so much when you were younger, you know, I got into martial arts because I was bullied and I felt low self-esteem and I felt like I just couldn't get out of myself because I had a bad family situation and all of those things. And martial arts saved me. That was my saving grace. But it was taken away. It was technically taken away from me through this injury. So I couldn't go back to my saving grace for 4 years. So, you know, for your listeners, for you, Marty, you know how good it feels to get a roll in, to feel the high of the room and get that experience. Imagine not being able to do that for 4 years.
Can't even imagine.
And imagine not knowing if you can even go back to that. Because we had discussions with different surgeons where they were like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this again because of the way that your genetic deformity is. I don't know that this is actually going to work.
Wow. So
being in doubt of this thing that is your saving grace that you don't even know if you can go back to.
That's devastating.
So I'm in my second surgery, completely gut-wrenched, scared, you know, because I don't even know if it's going to work.
Right.
And my whole thing is now, what am I going to do with my life? Well, I had the choice. Either do the second surgery and risk if this is going to work for your martial arts, like physically your body, or, you know, this is elective surgery, or kind of stay with the pain. We can manage it. Just don't do anything physical that hurts yourself and just go get a job doing something else. So I had to take the choice. Which one am I going to do? Risk a surgery that I don't know if it's going to work and then open up a martial arts school, or don't do a surgery and, you know, play a safe life and just, you know, go do something else, which I had jobs lined up. I won't even lie. I had a great county job. My dad had lined up for me through the county. I could have gotten hired by the county, got a good pension, got a good, you know, pay rate and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't be doing what I love to be doing. And I wouldn't be able to do martial arts really. I'd just be able to teach a little bit and do my full-time job. So obviously, as you know, I took the risk of the surgery. And after the surgery, I started opening up my martial arts school. And then I just opened it up. And I was like, if this is not going to work, I have to do this inside of my own mind, because as an 85-year-old person, or however old I am, if I'm sitting somewhere and I'm thinking back to myself, are you happy with that decision? And the answer was always no.
Wow.
So Alex Hormozi talks about this, the rocking chair decision making. I didn't even know this was a thing 7 or 8 years ago, but I asked myself, when you're older, are you going to be happy with the decision? I said, no, I need to do this for myself. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back to another job and I can go back to, that other lifestyle. But if I don't pursue this, will I be happy with the outcome? And I wasn't happy. So I had to go the route of the martial arts place. So get the surgery, open up my martial arts place, not fully recovered yet, but I just start running classes, as best as I can. And my body comes around. I feel great. Start, expanding the academy. And now we have, over 140 students in my academy. 6 years later.
What a great story, man. I love it. You're faced with that decision, and it would have been easy just to take the easy way, the more secure way, right? Where okay, at least I'm going to have stability or whatever. But using that rocking chair, man, looking back and saying, "And am I going to be happy with this decision?" And realizing that you are. So you had the courage to say, "Man, whatever, I'm going to go for it," and let it fall where it falls,
mm-hmm.
right? Love it. So, how's it been running your academy? I know you got a lot of students, which is wonderful. Let me ask you this. What do you think is the most important thing or a few things for someone to get good at jiu-jitsu?
When you say jiu-jitsu, I just want to make sure I hear that answer correctly. When you say jiu-jitsu, are you saying like no gi? Are you saying gi? Are we talking about Gracie combatives? Because when your listeners hear that, I know everybody's going to come from a little different of a background and how they perceive what's what.
That's great. I'm glad you clarified that. And I didn't really have any a specific with that. It could be with any part of that. Are there any particular traits or aspects that you think first of all, are there any things that would translate among those different ones you just named, that are universal, no matter which one? Or are there specific things needed for specific groups or what they're training?
Yes. Across the board, the best thing that you can get good at, whether it's striking, MMA, gi, no gi, is defense. A good defense will allow you to have a great offense. Just like in striking, if you have no defense, you cannot create a really good offense. So defense is important. Getting out of pins for jiu-jitsu, striking, learning how to move your feet, learning how to block, learning how to slip, learning how to parry, learning how to cover, bob and weave. Those things are first and foremost, and then after that, you can build on all of your super offensive stuff.
Nice. So let's say, how about for no-gi jiu-jitsu? What strikes or what stands out in your mind as the most important thing to know or have?
To know or have, and then I want to put context with this. Are we speaking about, when you say no-gi, are we adding strikes, or is this a sport format?
Let's just go sport format for now.
Sport format for now. The biggest thing that I believe, as of right now, the most important thing for no-gi is absorbing and becoming aware of what's happening with the new quote unquote no-gi transition of leg locks and buggy chokes and all of those things. You have to understand those things in order to become relevant in the, we'll say, competition no-gi world, because more people are experimenting and using these things. And if you've never seen it before, it's going to be hard to defend if you've never studied it yourself. So becoming worldly in the world of no-gi and learning kind of everything that you can, leg locks, buggy chokes, all those things, because people do them. I mean, I'm in a room right now in Philly where we have guys my age who are 40s, they're black belts, and we got some blue belts and some purple belts who are 20 years old who are doing stuff that I technically haven't seen before growing up in martial arts, but now I'm seeing it. And if I'm not privy or aware of it, I'm going to get caught. So the more this happens in the younger generations, it's not going to stop. It's just going to keep continuing. Get with the times and learn what everybody else is learning. Doesn't mean you have to become proficient at doing the move yourself 100%, but know what you need to do in order to block it or for it to not happen.
That's great. What about for gi jiu-jitsu?
I'm going to say the same thing. There's a
Okay.
lot of stuff in the no gi. I'm sorry, in the gi now that guys are doing. Like, do you know the guy Baby Shark?
No, I don't.
Okay, so he's young. I think he's like 19, maybe he's younger. He's Brazilian. He's incredible, man. This guy is him, and then another guy, Galval, not Andre Galval. There's another one, Galval. I forget his first name. Mika Galval. He beat like Leandro Lowe. This guy's like 20 years old. You know, Leandro Lowe was incredible jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that these guys are doing now that are, I don't want to say completely new, but some of the newer stuff that we have to get hip to, per se.
Right.
So I would say for both of those things, Marty, for no gi and for gi, for somebody who's been training for a decent amount of time, those are the things that you should be just aware of and learn how to do and learn how to defend. Like, don't deny it.
Yes.
I feel like we run into these two camps, and it's just ignorance, in my opinion, because I was like that a couple of years ago where, you know, I was like, oh, this new stuff, you know, this is BS, or it doesn't work, or, you know, it does work and I don't like it. It's like, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. If people are going to do it, they're going to do it. And,
right.
You know, I better get hip to it. That's it. You know, Don't be a sore loser if you get caught with a buggy choke. It's not illegal. It's just you didn't know it. So that's for our regular, I would say our older practitioners that are in denial that this stuff works. Like it works. So don't say it doesn't. It does work. And then for new people, for no gi and for gi, learn your defense and learn your fundamentals. Like, learn your defense. Get really good at defense, and then you can have a great offense.
Excellent. So I like that. You know, even if you want to spend years and years learning, you know, being super proficient at the new stuff, at least being aware of it and training enough to defend it, and not being caught like, what is that? Never seen it. So that's good. You can't get so stuck in your ways that you're not open to, you know, the new stuff that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, some people are so obsessed with that, you know, they're just always chasing the latest thing, and that's fine. I mean, everybody can do what they want, but there's also nothing wrong with having kind of your base and primarily loving kind of a tradition of it or whatever, as long as you're not just forsaking the other stuff. Or if you are, it's a choice you're making, and don't get mad when you get caught, like you said. What about for combatives type thing, or let's say just self-defense? What's the most important thing to realize for just on the street self-defense?
Street self-defense, in my opinion, the most important thing to recognize and to become good at, beginner or advanced, because I see it still to this day, is learning how to transition from standing to your safe position of where you need to be in order to control that fight. Mm-hmm. Bridging the gap between somebody trying to punch you, either getting completely out of the situation, or really learning how to bridge that gap between you and that person to clinch. Or I know that some jiu-jitsu practitioners do not believe in re-punching somebody, but if you do and you become proficient at that, learning how to bridge the gap between somebody trying to hit you to you to hit them, to then, you know, clinch them or take them down or throw them. For me, that's one of the biggest things, because jiu-jitsu practitioners, we are, and I'm a black belt, so speaking from experience, we are under this impression that we are invincible to everybody who doesn't train jiu-jitsu. And I just want to say that I've been in a lot of different situations and fights before that were outside of jiu-jitsu, and I've seen a lot of different fights, and we see them now on the internet. It's not always what you think, and that person who you're fighting might have a little bit of training. Like now, the more that this goes on and UFC's in the limelight, people are going to get training more now. So to think, because I train jiu-jitsu, I'm invincible, but you've never trained with strikes in your whole life, it's just a little naive. I think it's a little naive, and I think that we need to learn what to do when somebody really is trying to punch and kick us and throw us up against the wall and like slam our head into the wall and do wild shit, because that's really how it's going to go down, with ill intentions. And Ricky and Phil, to this day, we still have Street Week once a week, every single month, where you bring in MMA gloves and Ricky goes over what to do, standing position, up against the wall. Somebody's holding your neck. Somebody's punching in the head. Somebody's, has you like in a headlock and they're trying to like punch you in the face. And like a lot of people don't know what to do from that situation. High level jiu-jitsu guys, who train quote unquote butt scooting all the time. They don't know what to do in those situations. And you need to be proficient. You have to know. You have to train punches and learning how to defend punches in order to become good at defending punches.
I couldn't agree more. And I've had the chance. No, you're right. And we get locked into.
Sounds wild, right?
No, I'm right there, man. We get locked into thinking, okay, everybody drinks the Kool-Aid sometimes. And my art and the way I'm practicing my art is like the best, right? And it's going to be all I need. But I was fortunate with some of the other arts I studied. We would do some realistic training, go out on the side of a hill where you're on level ground. We would do it in semi-dark, environment, and regular clothes that you're not, the gi that you're used to or no gi. So all those things and just the adrenalized thing. Now, going into competitions can help you, learn to deal with the adrenal dump. But aside from that, if you're not, I used to be with this instructor in this one art where it was just self-defense oriented, teaching mainly women, but where you'd go up and part of it was what we call wolfing. And, you get in your face and just really evoke through verbal means and intimidating stature and all this, evoke that adrenal response. And if you're not training with that, being adrenalized at times and on level ground and when the lighting's not good and all these things, and you don't have to do that all the time, but if you never have done anything like that, when those things come into play in a real situation and you're not on a nice slick mat with your gi, you're out of your element. And it's a very real different thing.
Very, very, very. So kind of like what you're saying, like if you don't train it and you don't know what it's like to be out of your gi and get punched in the face a little bit or have that unlevel ground or that weird positioning or the wolfing thing with like the intensity. Yeah. Rick always brings intensity to the training, so he's probably wolfing me. I don't even know it. But yeah, if you're not used to that adrenaline dump and that awkward, weird situation where people are punching, like a wild man. Right. It's hard to say that you're going to be safe all the time. Now, I want to say this because I know what the listener is thinking. The argument here that I always hear, Marty, is this, and I want you to hear it out because I have a rebuttal to it. The argument always is, oh, so you're trying to tell me that Andre Galvao or another top jiu-jitsu guy, you're trying to tell me if that guy was in a street fight that he wouldn't be able to beat up an everyday dude who was big muscle guy who was being aggressive. Are you trying to tell? Oh, that's a bullshit argument.
Definitely a bullshit argument.
Okay. No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course, I believe that Mr. Galvao or any of the other high-level jiu-jitsu guys who don't do MMA, do I think that they'd be able to take a street fighter 10 out of 10? Yes. What I am telling you, though, is not everybody who trains Brazilian jiu-jitsu is Mr. Galvao. Exactly. And the person who is not Mr. Galvao, who is a middle-aged woman in her 30s, who's never seen a punch before, who's never been in a competition, who's never done anything like that, for you to stick her on her butt all the time on the mat and tell her that somebody's going to fall into her guard, or tell her that you'll be able to hit this triangle from any position and you'll be able to hit this oompa, and you don't do any sort of striking standing up, is lying to that person about when that person, if they are going to be attacked, about how it's going to go down. And you would better serve this individual by showing them the Gracie combatives of what it's like to get the hip hug, to trip the foot, to cover up and get out of the situation, to run back away. But to put the context of this middle-aged woman who has a family who's 30 years old, who is not Mr. Galvão. To think that that woman is going to perform like Mr. Galvão when she gets punched in the face in an abduction situation is completely the opposite of what I'm trying to argue here.
That argument is just so lame, man, because of course someone that's a high-level athlete in a combative art is going to be able to wreck most normal people, you know?
Of course.
That's just a given. I mean, think back of like Mark Kerr or Mark Goldman and some of the things. I was watching some of the old Mark Kerr fights the other night, and he went against this one guy who was an Army Ranger, and I'm sure he was a bad dude in his own right, and he won a bunch of fights before and all that, but I mean, just nothing, because this guy's such a high-level specimen with attributes, but also just high-level wrestler, and that's going to carry over for sure. So it's just a dumb comparison. Even with my 1 year of high school wrestling, that served me well with a lot of encounters, you know, when I was young. And so I'm not saying at all that I think all of your training will give you a benefit in a real altercation. So I'm never saying sport's not going to carry over anything like that. But for the average person, if they don't train in some of these other things and get a little more depth to it, they are going to be at a loss for sure.
Correct. And that's why I believe when you bring somebody in, because the average person who walks through your door that wants to learn jiu-jitsu, whether it's for fun or for self-defense, the chances of them getting in a fight are pretty low, like real life, like their chances of getting in a fight are low. But I think it's important to have the Gracie combatives or some sort of combatives. I say Gracie combatives because I'm from a Gracie jiu-jitsu background, to give them the tools of what it is to be in a fight. So you are giving them the right tools that if they ever are in a fight, it's not like a big surprise.
Right.
Like they will have experienced somewhat of a situation like that for the future, and this is not knocking on the pure sport jiu-jitsu places, but it will give them more context than, okay, ready, match starts. Like I'm squatting down and I slap your hand. Is that person going to go do good in this self-defense situation? Maybe. I hope they do. Maybe they'll do great. But we have to think about the individual, particularly who's getting in those situations, and is it better to serve them on a combatives plane, or is it better to serve them on a competition plane? And I think that you can do both inside of your school. Right? You introduce them to combatives first. They have to do combatives and all of the 101 Gracie Jiu-Jitsu stuff. And after that, they can go into whatever you want to call it, master cycle or advanced. And that way they have both.
Yes. But at least they have a foundation of that real world, the kind of self-defense focus and aspect. And like anything else, you can choose what you love and do that. If no-gi competition's your thing, great, beautiful stuff. But at the same time, you got to be, back to kind of a point you were making, you have to be aware of the limitations of that. Like if you're in, say, karate or taekwondo or whatever, I'm not picking on them, but you're not used to having to defend groin kicks, right? Because that's not usually part of, at least in the sport aspect of it. So you get kind of conditioned to not have to worry that much about that. I was saying with jiu-jitsu, if you're on the ground in an open guard and you don't have to worry about stomping, you're getting stomped in the groin. But so at least know kind of where your vulnerabilities are. If you're not going to train it a lot, at least know where your openings are for people, and just have some awareness. That counts for a lot as well.
Having the awareness, and I think that's why, Marty, I think when you're talking about the punch of the groin or doing something odd, I think that's why Ricky does the street week every single week, because when he spars with you, he'll do wacky shit that you're not used to in regular jiu-jitsu. So for example, he'll get half guard. He'll do that, like sit through half guard where his back is turned to you. So you're like, oh, I'm safe. So you tuck your elbows in and you start scooting him down towards your hips, and he will elbow you in your thigh as you push him down to your hips. So it makes your legs stop for a second, and then he'll hammer fist your ribs while you're sitting in that position, and it takes away your whole game. It's like, wait, this doesn't work now. Right. What is he doing? Like he'll do funky shit. Like he'll punch you in the side of your arm when you're in a certain position, or he'll punch you in your thigh, or he'll elbow you in your in your inner thigh, or when he has you in guard, he'll do the Hoist Gracie thing where he takes his heels and he'll like hit your back, the back of your ribs with his heels. Like, it hurts, and it throws your game off.
It does, and then in Tony Robbins' terms, it interrupts your pattern.
You're damn right it interrupts your pattern.
Right.
Damn right.
Nice. Well, let's change a little bit right now. I want to hear about any lessons that stand out that you learned in 2022, and what goals or aspirations do you have for this year?
Standout lessons in 2022. So 2022, we have one of my students who is now the biggest shareholder in my current martial arts studio. So, and then I'll tell you about my 2023 goals. So 2022, the biggest thing that I learned about running an academy and in general is it's not about how good and how tough I am as a martial artist that people come to my place, but how deep I can touch people who come into my martial arts studio. How deep can I affect them on an internal level of transfer of emotion? And then how do I train my staff on that? So how do I scale more with those kind of things, and not thinking the tougher we are and the harder we train, the more people that come? That's baloney. Mm-hmm. It's how deep can we touch our students, and how much can we get our students to trust us with basically, with their martial arts life? How much can we serve other people? So that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned this year. It's because now Mr. Todd, who is basically the head instructor there, I'm rarely there, is I had to become more of a leader. And I had to learn, like, okay, I'm not here now. How do I make this operation run better than when I'm not there? Because if I'm the key and the crux of the whole thing, that's really not a business. That means I'm hinging on everything. So how do I scale this even more? What are the things that I need to do? So I need to be able to learn how to impact people. I need to learn how to be a better leader. I need to learn how to scale things better. I need to be able to touch my students, or my instructors need to learn how to impact their students, my students, on an emotional level that compounds for years, not just how tough we are and how hard we train. Nobody cares about that. Very few people do.
I love that, man. I love it. I think that's just right on. Love it.
And then for 2003, second location will go up. Me and my wife, we're moving to Florida, and I'll be putting up my second location there, right below Jacksonville. We're going to be opening in St. Johns County. We're already looking at places right now for LOIs, and I'm going to have the biggest school in St. Johns County when I go down there.
That's awesome. I'm from Florida. I love Florida.
Oh, you're from Florida?
Yeah, I don't live there now, but I'd love to get back there someday. And my mom still lives there. I still go back at least a few times a year. But in the Panhandle. The Panhandle, around Destin, Fort Walton Beach area.
Okay, cool. Well, it's not that far. St. Johns County is not that far.
No, not at all. Matter of hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting, man. It's very exciting. And does your wife help you much with the business, or does she support you?
She supports me in every which way. My wife supported me when I didn't have a studio, and I told her I was going to open one. She's been so supportive, but she works full time for a company, and she loves her job. I've asked her to quit and come on board, and it's just not her thing. So
I got you.
She loves what she does, but she is super, super, super supportive in everything.
That's awesome. And what's her name?
Her name is Diane.
Excellent. I saw it on paper, but I wasn't going to try to pronounce that.
All good.
Nice. Well, great, man. Glad you got a supportive mate there, and a couple of great kids as well, right?
Yeah, I have a 6-year-old and I have a 4-month-old.
Wow, amazing. I can't even imagine a 4-month-old. It's been a while for me, but what a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. It sounds like your life's going very well, man. It's great to hear.
So I want to say that having kids, as you do too, Marty, and doing a new step. So let's really quickly rewind back to the beginning of the episode when we talked about taking chances and doing different things. I am in, as Tony would say, a pattern right now. The exact same pattern that I was in before, choosing between safe job and, opening a martial arts studio. That conundrum right there, I'm there again. I'm there again right now again. I'm there in, why am I going to leave New Jersey? I have an academy here. I have a life here. Why am I going to leave to go to another state, another area where I really don't know anybody, risk opening up a school to change my family's life? Why don't I just stay in New Jersey and stay safe? These are the conversations that we have with ourselves. But I know on a very deep level, I have a feeling, when we have these internal feelings, I have a very deep internal feeling that's driving me to be there. And I know that it's going to be amazing. I know it's going to work. I know it's going to be better than I ever thought it was going to be when we get down there.
And you're smart enough to listen to that inner voice instead of rationalize it away or make reasons not to listen. So good for you.
And I know that this is for the better of my family.
Yes.
We're moving down there for lifestyle factors and schools. And I know that in the beginning, it won't be easy, but I know it'll be worth it.
Well, total respect for you for making that decision and doing what you can to make the best life you can for your family.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Listen, it's been a pleasure, and you're an awesome guy, a class act with a lot of knowledge. So I appreciate you sharing more about who you are and your life with us, and keep up impacting those lives, man. You're doing awesome.
Thanks so much, Marty. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. A long, healthy, and happy life, my brother.
Thanks, brother. You too.
All right. Cheers.
Ciao.
All right. Really enjoyed that discussion with Charlie. What an interesting person he is for sure. All right. This episode is brought to you by Breathing for BJJ. And Breathing for BJJ is a 31-day online video program that I spent 2 years in developing, and it's designed to transform your jiu-jitsu experience. There's nothing more important than your breathing. It makes a profound difference in your jiu-jitsu experience. Optimizing your breathing takes your jiu-jitsu experience to a whole new level and has a huge impact on your performance. Learning to regulate your breathing can completely transform your jiu-jitsu experience. Being able to slow your breathing down when you need to, create energy when needed, breathe when in uncomfortable positions and situations, and to find the calm within the chaos are skills you need to master to create and achieve the optimal jiu-jitsu experience. This program uses a biomechanical approach to actually target and strengthen your specific breathing muscles, creating efficiency and effectiveness in your functional capacity to breathe. It's time to make breathing the foundation of your BJJ. And you can find out more at www.breathingforbjj.com. All right, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
Create weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people create good times. My whole thing is leaders anticipate, losers react. If you can anticipate what's coming, you can really take advantage. If you wait till it hits you, you're in trouble. The biggest problem people have is they think they're not supposed to have it. Problems are the fuel for growth. It's like if you don't have any problems, you're either a liar or you might call them challenges. It feels better. I understand that. Anybody who doesn't have problems is either totally asleep at the wheel or they don't have much of any kind of a life. But then there's fulfillment. And fulfillment is living what you're made for. Is it a lack of confidence? No, it's a lack of mission. I like winning. I like being the best at what I do. So I'm not going to settle for less than that. Why would I? Michael Jordan making 1,000 shots before you take a break. So you look at Jordan, or you look at, LeBron, or you look at anybody who's the best in the world at what they do, and you go, aren't they lucky? But if you actually study them, you'll see they're doing things, they're practicing in private things that make them certain in public, and they get rewarded for what they do in public.
Yeah.
And you got to do the same.
When you just know you're going to mess up, it's not going to be perfect, you're going to forget that line that you really wanted to say, but just put all the energy on the audience, everything starts to change. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
It's a shift in your identity. Every single day, 6 days a week. What matters? A few subjects, your body, because your energy matters. That energy is low. Everything I just said is worthless to you. Because when you're low energy, you don't use your full intelligence or ability. You need emotion. If you don't know how to master your emotions start wars. Emotion creates peace. Emotion gets you children. Emotion is what can make that business work or fail. And most people don't know how to direct their own emotions. Let me be conscious about feeding my brain things that are going to give me not only inspiration, but insight and skill and tools. 68% of the Fortune 1000 were started in either a recession or a depression. Well, the first skill you got to master to be great is the ability to recognize patterns. When humanity recognized the pattern of the seasons, the whole world changed. Because we went from hunter-gatherers trying to survive from place to place where we're exposed to everything, to wait a second, if we plant in the springtime, we protect in the summer, we reap in the fall, and then we hang on to some of that so we can live through the winter. That created communities for the first time, and then eventually cities and states and countries. So that changed the world. What'll change a person's life is when you realize there's also a set of seasons in your own life.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.GJJR.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.